It is the same. That was Bear Alexander, former Georgia football player's answer to a question about physicality at USC when compared to that at Georgia. Here's the quote. I don't know if people are making too much of this quote, but I do want to read what Lincoln, or excuse me, what Bear had to say. He said it's the same. Lincoln and Kirby are very similar. Both got the same goals and the same expectation, so it's similar. So I watched this video, and Matt, and a lot of the stuff that Bear was talking about was, it sounded like he was at Georgia. I mean, he's talking about hunting and all this stuff, but he's very much not at Georgia anymore. And I am skeptical that USC has the same physicality of Georgia, excuse me. And I think some of the reporters that were asking questions were maybe skeptical of that as well. What's your take on what Bear had to say? And we'll take it from there.
Yeah, it just sounds a little bitter, right? I don't know if someone asked him specifically, "Hey, are these practices as physical as Georgia, or if it's through Georgia, out there like that?" But it, it's it sounds ridiculous at first because when you think of USC Trojan football, you think of offense, and you have for a while. I mean, the last stout defense they had was 15 years ago. I mean, it's it's not a smooth transition to take a defense that just got blown out by Tulane and say, hey, we're a lot better now. We're as physical as the most physical defensive line in the game. I mean, of course he's going to say that. I get it. But it does sound like he's a little bitter towards Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs. I guess he just wanted to play more on first and second down. He thought he was the guy. It's not going to be that way at Georgia. And if he's playing all three downs at Southern Cal, they're not going to be stopping anybody. This guy's got a lot of work to do, and I'm not buying it at all that they're as physical as Georgia. I mean, come on, it's kind of ridiculous, Dean.
So couple of notes, a couple of facts here for
Love the
our
facts.
very our awesome audience that we
Yeah.
really do love and appreciate. So first of all, USC was the number 79 defense in the country against the run. They were allowing about 160 yards a game. In terms of them getting blown out by Tulane, they lost by a point, Matthew. They lost by a
Okay.
point. They lost by a point in the Cotton Bowl, but I'm sure it felt like a blowout.
Yeah.
And I don't know if SC is a long way away, but um, they're not where they once were. I mean, I certainly watched them quite a bit when I was in my formative times of doing dog posts in the 2000s. And USC was, I mean, the real deal. Hey, make sure you're taking advantage of this real deal offer. If you pick up a subscription to Dog Post today, you're going to get our 2023 preview, which I am running out of, for free. You're going to get a free shirt from our friends at Red Zone. You're going to get 20% off your special code. You'll get whatever that code is. You're going to have it. And within 30 days, you're going to get whatever you want, 20% off anything in their store. It can be the panoramic photos, etc. In addition, one last free thing for everybody. If you order Double Dogs, and I know there's a bunch of you out there, sign up below. You get your month for free. You get 30 days after your first 30 days is done. So back to SC and Bear and all this. Matt, they, as you correctly diagnosed, defense when it matters has been an issue for them. They allowed 35 points or more against Utah, Arizona, California, UCLA, Utah again, and then Tulane. So they only held, it looks like, Rice, Oregon State, Washington State, and Colorado under 20 points. They're not where they need to be. But more than anything, I would just wonder, why does this story matter to Georgia folks? Because he's talking about Georgia, because it's being compared? Like, why does this matter in any way? I mean, USC has been unable to get to the playoff, which is amazing to me.
Yeah.
USC has not won the Pac-12, and I can't remember, what has it been, 5 years? It's not happened under Lincoln Riley.
Yeah.
Why does this matter to Georgia?
What's the term in The Wire? If you come for the king, you better not miss. Is that? I mean,
Yeah.
he's putting Georgia in his mouth, right? And if they do make it to the playoff, and they face off against, we'll be talking about this moment right here. But if they make it that far, maybe, Bear Alexander. And I do think that they a couple other transfers on the defensive line because, like I said, if you talk about physicality, that starts in the trenches and it starts by stopping the run, which they didn't do a great job last year. So maybe he thinks it's been, a strong fall. And guys are looking, I don't think it's going to take a while for new guys to come in. And I know you have to be cohesive and have chemistry. The same on the defensive line as well. I mean, you got a stunt. There's a whole lot of stuff that's going on, and you got to get that corrected. But he's talking about like to see. I don't know who they open up with, but I want to see it before I believe it. But if you're going to throw out Georgia like that, Georgia's the top dog. I mean, you better have something to back it up with, or else he's going to look dumb. I mean, we know what Georgia can do, and we think that they're going to be very strong on the defensive line. Now it's up to him and back this up. But people are going to remember this if they happen to play in the playoff.
So USC opens up with San Jose State, and I can assure you I'll be watching that game. That's on the Pac-12 network, and then they're going to open up. That's an 8:00 kickoff in Eastern time. They'll play Nevada after that at 6:30 on the Pac-12 network. They will their first sort of big game will be against Stanford on Fox at 10:30 at night. 10:30. So, but a national audience nonetheless, which will be a fun game. 10:30 at night. That is an amazing. I'm all about it. This group loves those games. But I think, listen, I think Bear Alexander is really good, personally.
He can be, yeah.
Well, that might be a better way of putting it, but I think it is. I'm not so sure after listening to it that there's really much to talk about here in terms of like getting fired up about it. He's saying that, I think my take on this is he's saying, hey, listen, football is football. And like, it's a rough sport and all this stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know that he said it the right way, but he didn't talk at all at Georgia. He wasn't allowed to. And, now he's at USC, which is a slightly different situation. So, they're in front of cameras. And to be honest, Bear Alexander is really important for the Trojans this year. He's got to play well. He's got to help not set he's got to help set the tone. This is a program that really needs to get jumping on defense.
Yeah. And we saw flashes of him last year, right?
Yes.
I mean, when he was in, he made an impact and he was easy to see.
Correct.
He's got to take that step forward, though, if he wants to be the guy that a lot of people thought he could be out of high school. He was a borderline 5-star for a reason. And when he does give it his all and he works hard and shows a competitive spirit, he was a really good player. And I do think he's only going to get better.
We don't know though. We don't
there
know
are
that.
more distractions at USC, so I will say that. But there's no reason why he shouldn't.
Brent Cox did not get better.
Brent Cox did not get better.
And so I don't necessarily. Go ahead, Matt.
I don't hope for any of these guys to get worse, but you're right. Brenton Cox got a lot worse. Whereas Aziz Ojulari, who came in that same class, got a lot better. We'll see about, Bear Alexander, but, I mean, we'll see if he's at USC next year, too. He was at 4 high schools. I know people like to throw that out there, and I don't know if it's just a change of scenery or the right change of scenery. I don't know, but I'll keep tabs on them. I'm going to be watching a lot of USC football. They're a fun team to watch. I don't know if Georgia is going to be keeping tabs on Bear Alexander and the Trojans, though.
No, but I mean, he's now going to be coached by Sean Nawa. I'm sure I pronounced that wrong. Who had, some time in the NFL, playing in Super Bowl, winning it with the season. Winning it with the Steelers. He's been all over the place coaching, but I think there's just not much. The results are in, and my criticism of Bear is not that he left you. Is not that he, is not this stuff, but quite clearly, if you want to be a first-round draft pick from the defensive line, there now is no better school than Georgia. I mean, I think you could make the argument that Clemson And who else am I leaving out here?
Alabama
Out,
still
out
pumps them out. Ohio State will still pump them out. But right now, I think you're right. I think it's
Georgia.
a fact, too. I'm not sure it's an opinion. If you just go back and look at the first round picks and
Correct.
the production at the collegiate level and the trophies they've won to go along with where they got picked in the draft, I think you're absolutely right. And recruits know that, too. They've got 6 committed in
Yep.
the 24 class. They know what Trey Scott and Kirby and Glenn Schumann are doing. And they're doing a great job, not only across the defense, but particularly on that defensive line.
Yeah, it's a great defensive line. And I think the other thing that I've been thinking of saying, and I haven't said it yet, just because we're talking here, is it's one thing to be a really good player on a defensive line that has 5 defensive linemen who are legit. Georgia was rolling in 9 or 10 people. They are fresh constantly. Brinson, Stackhouse, Walthour, Logue. That's just the seniors. Williams, Jefferson, Ingram Dawkins, Jarrett, Hall, Miller, Madden. There are 11 defensive linemen who I do think will play this fall at Georgia. That's a lot of guys. Now, they lose Jalen, but what I'm trying to articulate here is that for Bear, he's going to go from being a third downish guy who can come in and really rush the passer to someone who's going to have to stop the run. And I
Yeah,
just, it's not fun stopping the run, Matt. I mean,
yeah,
it can be fun, but it's physically
yeah.
challenging to do so. I don't want
It's
to
not
tackle.
pretty.
I don't want
Yeah,
to tackle Kendall Milton.
no. And he's going to be double teamed a lot. I
Yeah.
mean, Jamal, I mean, I say Jamal Jarrett, but Jordan Davis, he made plays, but it's not like he lit up the stat sheet because he was
No.
getting double teamed. He was eating up space. He was doing his job and being a good teammate. And I think that's what Bear Alexander has to do. We know he's extremely talented and he can get after the quarterback when only one guy is blocking him. I want to see how he reacts when 2 guys are trying to manhandle him. And can he still shed blocks and attack the ball carrier? Can he get down the line?
Are you
Can
going to
he?
be interested in doing these things?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's got a big step ahead of him, and he's got a lot to learn and a lot to prove.
Yeah, I don't. Listen again. I mean, we've just spent almost 15 minutes talking about this, but I do not think this is overly. Guys just say stuff. They really don't. I don't know how much perspective Barry Alexander has. His perspective of playing at USC and at Georgia. He's never been through an off season at a college football program. He doesn't know the names of some of his teammates at USC. That will change. It's August. There's a lot that's probably still swirling around for him, and I think that it's not. I don't think this should be taken overly seriously. USC, I'm sure, has perfectly physical practices, but no, they're not like Georgia's. I mean, I've never seen a USC practice in person. I've seen USC play football
Yeah.
lately and have Tulane run it down their gullet and win a 1-point blowout, as Matt would say. But it felt like a blowout that day. Could you believe that?
I could not believe it, but it did feel like a blowout because they couldn't stop Tulane. Now, I know
Yes,
USC scored a bunch of points,
they
right?
did. They did.
And they barely lost, but it felt like a blowout because they were giving up so many points left and right, and they were not in shape. I mean, they were huffing and puffing that whole second half. They couldn't keep up.
Yeah.
That goes to coaching, but that also goes to they don't have the depth on the defensive line. And if you want to have an elite defensive line, you better have second and third string guys who can come in fresh and still make plays. And Georgia has plenty of depth. I don't know if USC has any depth, but old Bear Alexander is going to need a break here and there if they want to consistently stop the run and force 3 and outs and keep guys like Tulane from scoring 50 points, whatever they scored.
They were as effective against stopping the run against Tulane as I was. And 305 yards rushing, Matt. USC gave up 10.4 yards a play. That is insane.
That's insane.
539 total yards. Now SC, who had more yards and also more plays, but Tulane was just exploding on them the entire time. USC had the ball 40 minutes of the game, and they still got rolled like that. I mean, like, that just cannot happen. 20 minutes. I don't know how many plays it is. It's not a lot, but the two teams only had 9 penalties total and 2 total punts on the game. I watched it. It was nuts. I
It
mean,
was a fun game to watch. If
it was.
Tulane was Team A and USC was Team B, like the blue or the orange team, whatever, it was a fun game to watch.
It
But
was.
it's still hard to comprehend that Tulane, which is an up and coming program, they're doing it right. I mean, I have to give them some type of credit, but USC should never lose to Tulane, and they should never give up that many yards on the ground to a team like Tulane. But hey,
It's not.
maybe they got Bear Alexander now. Things are changing. They're physical.
Oh
I want to see
boy.
it.
All right. Thanks, Matt.